So happy to be here today. Well, I guess I better click my button there. There we go. So happy to be here today. I guess I'm the guinea pig, the first one in the series. And hopefully this next few minutes will be a productive time for you. I first had my experience with strategic planning when I was working on my doctorate degree at the Ohio State University, and one of my professors was really into strategic planning. And so it was part of my coursework, and it became a part of my professional work as I got more acquainted with this process. So I learned it, and now I like it and I use it. And so it's been helpful to me. So we're going to get started here today. We'll say that I am going to do a little bit of explanation here at the beginning to give you an idea of what strategic planning is in terms of the format that I'm going to use or I have used and I found successful. There's other ways to do these kinds of needs assessment and program planning processes, but this is going to be the one that I used, and hopefully it'll be useful to you. And it actually was something that I used with our Master Gardener volunteers a year ago. And so I'm going to be sharing them as an example so that you can see how the pieces parts fit together to make this whole thing work. So first I'm going to just ask, have you ever worked with a group and there's a lot of mixed opinion? There's a lot of maybe dissension in the group where people aren't working together. Their long-term goals and their short-term goals don't seem to be in the same path. And I think we probably have all experienced that a little bit in extension. And so as we're looking at what we're going to accomplish today, I'm hoping that you're going to increase your knowledge of just some terms and things we use in strategic planning processes, some of the terminology and the components. Hopefully increase your confidence to try this in your local community, maybe with a group that you're struggling with right now and where their future is going. And then also understanding how each of these parts fit together and how they can benefit our institution, which, I work for the Ohio State University, and I see that several of you from all parts of the country, how it might benefit you and your community, or possibly an outreach and committee with other organizations you might be a member of. So that's really what our objectives are for today. And so why do organizations need to plan? Well, we in Extension, we're always planning for that next event, the next program. And we know that without a plan, the only way you get where you're going is by accident. And so the Extension way is to do that planning, but sometimes it's challenging because of the people that we work with and their backgrounds and how they're coming to us. So we need to define where our organization is going and where it's supposed to go. And I've used my Master Gardener logo there because it can be a current need that you're working with. And so trying to define where the organization is going to go. So what is strategic planning? I'm going to give you a variety of.
Hey, Judy, not to stop you, but your slides are not advancing on my end of the screen. So.
Okay. You can't see me moving. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to go here. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for helping me with that. You haven't missed too much so far, so we're okay. So what we have here are a variety of definitions, thoughts, and I've gathered these, and I think what I want you to gain from them, I highlighted some of these in color. So strategic planning, it is something that provides a structure, provides us something that we can use to move forward. It creates a direction. Sometimes we feel like we're spinning, we're not moving anywhere. So it's going to help an organization move forward, and it maximizes your options. Sometimes it aligns a vision with its goals and objectives. I think that's helpful. Now let me see if this is going to work for me. There we go. It sometimes provides a strategy to create change. It helps you get to where you want to be. Aren't these things that we want in our programming? It's a documentation, and it helps us establish direction. And then by Bryson, he wrote, it shapes and guides our organization, what it does and why it does it. And then this is my former professor, Dr. Dale Seyfried. And I really like this definition of what a strategic plan is. It's ongoing. And we know that it can't be stagnant. We can't just stop. We have to keep moving. So it's ongoing, it's future oriented. So we're moving forward, we're progressing. We're hopefully going to help an organization or a group that we're working with, a committee or whatever it might be, to help them look into the future to see what could be for the organization. It's values-based, it empowers the organization, and it has action strategies to it. So that's kind of the premise I'm going to use as we're talking about strategic planning today. So why would I want to do this? Why would I want to invest the time? And I can't tell you that it's going to be a quick and easy fix, because it's not. It's going to be some work on your part. It's going to be some work on the members of your organization on their part, but hopefully it's going to be some advantage. And so we're going to talk about that. Why strategic planning? It brings your people together. It helps them work as a group to focus on what the direction of the organization is. Because many times we talk about this is the committee is their committee. It's their organization. And we as extension professionals guide them, direct them, sometimes prompt them along. And so really this is having everyone together, or at least maybe they're not always together when you come to do the actual strategic planning, but at least they're giving input. And I'll explain to you how that works. Promotes open and creative exchange of ideas. And sometimes people don't want to share what's really on their mind. They're afraid that somebody else is going to get their feelings hurt. And so this is an opportunity through this process for them to put some of their thoughts out on the table so people can hear, they can understand that, wow, maybe I didn't know that was happening. And so I'll explain that as well. It's a well-written strategic plan. It's a process, and it can be something that can take your organization, pivot into growth and success. And I think that's a pretty good reason why we would want to do it. And it gets the organization members to buy in that we might be experiencing some change in the future, because not everybody wants to experience change. And so this might be one way that you can do. Okay. So what are the steps? So first of all, we need to choose a framework. And I'm going to share with you today a framework that I've used. It's really based on Dr. Seyfried's research and study, but it's really something that's going to suit what your organization needs, the structure of your organization. Steps of strategic plan, also taking a look at your mission, vision, and values. We hear that so many times in our work, the mission, vision, values, but do we ever really take those, the mission, vision, values, and put them into work? And I'm going to show you how we did that with our master gardeners. We're going to get into the details of your strategy, looking at some long-term goals, how we're going to have action plans that are going to get us there. And that's pretty important. And then the reporting process. And do we have to do it again, or is it over? This is going to be ongoing. So it's going to allow for evaluation and redesign if necessary, and continuation. That's pretty important. Some ground rules that we need to understand. And part of those are that all participants have the opportunity to speak. Every member of the organization should feel like their input is valuable. And there's a way that we can capture that right off the beginning. And that's what I'm going to share today. But that has to make them feel good, is that their opinion matters. We're going to challenge ideas, not people, not people. Input adds to others' ideas, because once they get together, they start building upon each other. And that is the value of bringing a group of people together. Now, we had to do this in our county, in Richland County, by virtual means, by Zoom. So that was a little bit more challenging because we don't feel that bouncing back and forth. Some people were uncomfortable with using the computer and the equipment and the technology. And so it would have been much better to be able to do it in person. But a year ago, or maybe 18 months ago when we started, we didn't have that opportunity. We weren't allowed to meet together. And so, we had to do it by Zoom. But obviously, if ideas bounce off of each other as we are in person. So that's pretty important. And we need to respect the schedule. You need to keep people on task. And that's one of the things as the administrator or the person facilitating this, that you have to work with people. Okay, so we're going to talk about the mission, why the organization exists. We're going to talk about the vision, what the organization will look like in the future. And we're also going to take a look at the values, what our organization stands for, what's important to our group, and then noting our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I'll explain that as we go along. So let's move into the Richland County Master Gardener Volunteer example. And I think this will be helpful for you, that you can see exactly how this works. So in my view, as I was looking at our master gardeners, I'm a 4-H educator, so I don't always work with the master gardeners. So this is a group of people that I knew well. I'm the lone educator in my county, so I've worked with them a bit, but it's not the same kind of relationship as I would have had maybe if I was the agriculture educator and this was one of my programs and we worked consistently together. So I'm kind of looking in the window here. People that I know, I've worked with, they respect me, I respect them, but I'm looking in the window. And so that was a little bit of a challenge from my end. So what I found was a large division in our group. We know that we continually need to have new members coming into our organization so we can continue to grow our organization, because some people will leave, some by, as they get older, maybe by death or by, health reasons. And so we always need to keep bringing in people from the other end. And so I found a large division in this group. There's a lot of work, but even the organization's officers really weren't working together. And so the last class we had somewhat lower numbers involved with it. And so just a lot of negative tones about starting a new class. And then there was others say, hey, we've got to have new people. And so just a real division of the house. Some frustration with our current leadership. Nobody wants to run for an office. You've probably heard that before. I don't want to be president. That's too much time. I don't have time to do that, or I don't have the skills or the ability. So maybe they put people in place that maybe weren't the strongest folks, or maybe people were getting tired of being the same officers year after year after year because nobody else would do it. So, just some mixed feelings there. So some people were looking that maybe some of the leaders were slacking a bit or weren't following through. Some felt that maybe the president was kind of telling everybody what to do, and because she's getting frustrated because she's not getting people to do things. So they were thinking about, how about a team concept? We'll just have a team of people be leaders. Well, you still got to have those people that want to be on that team. So frustration, a lot of personality conflicts, not so much outside of master gardeners. They were friends, but it's just when they got to the master gardener realm, it just felt like a punching bag where they just really weren't, wanting to work together. Too many projects. Some people think there's too many. Some people there's not enough volunteers. If the volunteer base is dwindling and you have the same amount of projects, then more people have to pick up the slack and pick up the work. And so pretty challenging there, but the whole project thing that they work on. And then of course the dwindling membership. People that had been involved in the organization now were feeling, oh, I don't know if I want to be in this. I got my feelings hurt, or they didn't welcome me back, or somebody didn't talk at me at one meeting. And so people weren't coming back. So this is, from my view, what I was seeing. And I'm just like, wow, where do I start to fix this? How can I move it into something that's going to be a positive change? I really didn't know what I was going to do. And then I got to thinking, you know what? I'm going to get the dust off of those strategic planning notes that I haven't done in maybe a little while. And then I'm going to think, would that work with this group? So then I need to start the planning process. And I know this is virtual. These folks meet regularly once a month. So I know I kind of have a structure in place when I'm going to see them. So now I've got to fit the planning into those monthly meetings. And this is the schedule I used. Thinking about in the fall, I told you, I shared with you what my view was, what I saw, what I was sensing, what I was feeling. That this is could be a powerful organization, but yet they just weren't together. They weren't a team. They weren't working together. So my research and planning and thinking about all this and goal setting kind of happened in September. And I'm thinking, what I want to have happen. And I knew that following year, we were going to get a new agriculture educator. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could get this group ready to go? And so when that individual came on board in extension, I go, here you go. You've got master gardeners. They're thinking about their future, and they have all their goals and all these things. And that's what I was thinking. So that's kind of my thought process. So it started with a SWOT profile. And I don't know if you're familiar with the SWOT profile, but I find those very useful to me. And I'm going to explain what that is. So if you don't know, hang on, we're going to get to that. But that SWOT profile was sent to every member. And of course, we're sending things out electronically. And these folks, they they did good with, I think probably the 25, 30 members, I got in the low 20s back. So I feel that was a pretty good response rate. Some were filled out pretty in depth, others just a few things. But I did get that research done with the members, and I tabulated that into November. And I was ready to share a presentation with them. And we're going to go through that process here in just a few minutes. But that's kind of what I was thinking, the action strategies, thinking about some plans of kind of things we can do, and then actually putting that plan together by February. The results and the implementation, was going to happen in March, and then by April, we were going to have this new organization functioning. And that was my plan with the new extension educator to come in June. So we were going to be right on target. So and of course, evaluation is continual. So that's part of it. So we began with a SWOT profile. And this is where all members are going to have input. They're going to participate in discussion, and it is confidential. No one knew. They could send it back to me. They could drop it in the mailbox here at the office. They could drop it through our little mail slot that we have. So if they really had some things that they didn't want anybody to know where they came from, it was very confidential. There's no names or anything on it. And it was an opportunity for them to share some ideas instead of lashing out to individuals. And we know how awkward it is at a meeting when you've got a group of people together and somebody starts lashing out at other people. That doesn't feel good. That's not good for the organization, and it's surely not good for the people that are sitting there. So we wanted to make this non-threatening to everyone. And it was intended to be a direction board discussion and a developmental tool. And that's what I shared with them. Not one of them had ever done a SWOT profile before, so they had no idea. And really what I was trying to do is we're going to assess where we're at. We got to know where we're at before we can have the strategies and the action plan to move forward. So this is what the SWOT profile is all about. The S stands for strengths. So what are the things that our organization does best? And I'll show you the examples here shortly. And weaknesses, the things the organization is currently doing that we could do better. And there were lots of things listed on the weaknesses side. Opportunities, what we should be doing that we're not doing right now. And it really gave the master gardeners an opportunity to be thinking about, well, what really is it that I want this organization to be doing? And so, it's more easy to pull out negative stuff. But when you think about opportunities, what we should be doing that we're not doing right now. And then finally, the threats, the T, things that could threaten the organization's continued existence. And that really took some thought for folks. And they did have answers. So this prints out, and it's in a nice little sheet like this. And so they can write in, whatever they think, and the strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. And, like I said, some people wrote a little bit, some people wrote a lot, wrote books for me. And so we're going to lead into that strategic planning process now. And so my direction to the members was, we're going to, at this meeting in the fall, we're going to take a look at those SWOT results. And we have to understand, and again, the ground rules, the responses are not to be taken personally. Now, some people could read in there, if you're the officer, you're the president of this group, and you see something there about the officers aren't following through, you kind of know that that's directed to you. I did send this out earlier, so they had a chance to look over the results. So I didn't spring it on them right at our virtual meeting together. So I wanted them to think about that. And the president was good about it. She said, I know I'm not where I need to be in leading this group. So she did not take things personally. She's probably the one that a couple of things in there were about officers that was tough. But, there was one who never shows up, was the vice president, never comes to the meetings. And so, that stuff came out. Responses are not out for debate. It's not, okay, you said that, let's talk about that. I don't agree with that, because everybody's response was valuable. And that's the view of what the people see at this point in time. So let's take a look at those things. What does the organization do best? And here's some of the things that they wrote. They see there's a lot of interest. It's a group of people with great interest in gardening and the environment, strong knowledge base, great education, experienced people. There's lots of volunteer opportunities. They can share knowledge with one another. They're caring and dedicated volunteers. Oh, this is great stuff. When you first look at this, it's like, wow, this is a great program, and we're moving forward, and everybody is happy. But then we look at the weaknesses. what are the things the organization is currently doing that it could be doing better? So then we get into these things. Too many projects and too few members. Some struggles with the newsletter. Then we get into some appointment of chairs for various events. We seem like kind of do it as a group and nobody's really taking leadership. Well, there's the first one. Conduct Master Gardener volunteer classes. No one wants to do a new class. We're losing members. Nobody wants to help. We're not retaining people. We're not encouraging our current base of people to step up and be teachers among the group. We're not getting enough people to help with projects. We don't have enough younger members. And I didn't list all the weaknesses, but this is a portion of them. And so then we get into the opportunities, the things the organization should be doing, they're not doing right now. Wow, looky here. We should be contacting past members, making them feel welcome. Regular meetings are normally held, but they lack focus. Wow, what's that saying? We're not having a lot of focus in our meetings. Now we talk a little bit about the officers. We're talking about the newsletter. Nobody wants to be the editor of the newsletter, so it was kind of passed from person to person. So here, it's not consistent. Those things are coming out. It's maintaining the volunteer base. Having a class, there it comes again, have a class to increase members, recruit more members. So you can see now we're starting to see some things repeating. They were something that was a weakness. Now there are opportunities that we could be doing. And then we get into the threats, the things that could threaten whether this organization actually continues. And we're hearing more about projects, we're hearing more about members, we're hearing more about officer structure and burnout. We're hearing about these virtual meetings. We don't like these. We want to do more promotion in the community. Again, no class, no more master gardeners. Can you see a theme that's coming about here? Should we be having a master gardener class? It's coming through. Excuses why, people aren't coming to meetings. We talk about excuses, but what are we doing about it? Okay, these could be the threats that could keep this organization from not being able to exist in the future. So what does this mean? When we're looking at all these things, we have all these results, we have the input from people. Should we just stop here? We know what we sort of need to do, but now people are starting to think. They're starting to think, well, maybe we should be doing things different. We know our strengths were good, but could we be better? Could we improve? And so we're trying to see some of these things that might be able to help. So we'll go to step 3. And again, we're moving from meeting to meeting now. Part of this strategic planning process is based on the mission, vision, and values. And I mentioned that earlier. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what I did with these master gardeners in terms of working on their mission, vision, and values. And so part of this is, looking for the basic, most critical goals and purpose. Why do we exist? Do we need to have this group? I mean, that's a pretty obvious question. Should we exist? Who do we serve? How do we serve them? And why is this organization unique? And why is it a benefit to our community? So when we look at mission, sometimes a mission will become the vision statement, or a vision statement might become a mission statement because we're always moving and growing and changing. So what I did is that I shared Ohio State University's extensions mission with them, and they took a look at this and I said, well, okay, yeah, science-based, yeah, I get that. And then the Ohio Master Gardener vision. This is what the Master Gardeners in the state of Ohio were looking at. So my question is for the Master Gardeners in Richland County. So where do we fit among Extension's vision and the Master Gardener vision? And this is what we came up with. Why does our organization exist? And it's to inspire others. And I thought that was beautiful because, obviously master gardeners work with gardening and they're using research-based garden education, but to inspire others. That needs to help create that passion that they have with others, inspire them. And so we got our mission and they were excited about that because, this is about, we have pride and ownership with this organization. And so we're pretty excited about that. So then we start working on the vision. The mission is what we're working on now. The vision is what we see our organization into the future. This is Extension's vision. you can see here that knowledge and resources they need to actively engage and where they can thrive. Okay. And so what the organization would be like without unlimited resources. This is a question I asked them. And they're like, oh, wow, we could do these things. And it should be, you understand, it should be emotionally inspiring and stretch the organization of today to aim for the future. So this is the vision that now they come up with, that our master gardeners will be the leader, not just, out there doing some things. They're going to strive to be the leader. So now they're taking a view that we're going to go up some stair steps. We're going to get better. We're going to inspire others. We're going to get out there and we're going to be the leader in creating a climate for member-focused learning, which means they're going to learn inside. That means, remember, we talked about, are we going to have a class or not? So let's think about that. Member-focused learning. They're talking about themselves now. And community-focused gardening. And what does that mean for them? They're going to inform. They're going to educate. They're going to consult. And they're going to provide resources. And they're going to have quality gardening educational system at the Ohio State University. I think those are pretty lofty vision for them. So now they're thinking, wow, I'm excited. And they were. Chat, and they just were and a lot of times I had to, let's stay on target. So we have a vision. So now let's take a look at our values. What is our organization stand for? What are we about? What's important to this organization? And we want to take into account, remember, those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to our values. And here's the extension values. And they looked at all those and go, wow, that's a whoosh. Those are a lot of things. I don't know if we can be all those things. And so I said, well, how can we decide what we are, locally? And so I had a values activity for them. And this was to help them to identify when they were happy and when they were most proud of this organization. They came into this group for a reason. And I presume that it's to gain in their gardening knowledge and education. I presume it was because they liked teaching and they liked helping others and helping others create the same passion that they had. So that's the kind of stuff that came out. Identify times you're most fulfilled and satisfied, and then name those top values and prioritize them. If I could only have one, which one would it be? And so I want to tell you what I heard. I heard people. I heard learning and fellowship and laughter. Remember those times we got together and we had so much fun doing that project or teaching or doing that program. The teamwork, the respect, the credibility. And so, yeah, that's what we value, and the relevance and the meaning and the effective use of resources, our people. We need to use our people, and continuing learning and diversity. Wow, they were so excited. I mean, if we didn't have the point that it was time that some of them needed to go to bed, it was getting later in the evening, we would have probably kept on talking clear into the evening. And so what's next now? Now we're going to come up with some strategies, because we know what we value. We know what our mission and vision are. We know where our organization's at through that SWOT profile, but now we want to come up with very specific work plans that'll lead our organization into the desired future that we want and toward a positive future. We look for those common threads in the SWOT profile and we listen to what the people were saying. And you know what? That was my job. I was the listener, and I took notes, things they said, the comments that they had. And so now I want to see how we put this in place. And we're going to go back to those opportunities. Again, I've highlighted some things that I heard there. Something about the meetings. There's not much purpose. Now, we just went through a process where they value all these things, and they love master gardeners, and they love the gardening. They want to teach, and they want to do all these things. But do we really have that purpose? There's something about the officers and the newsletter. That's the communication things and the projects that we do. And again, there's more things I could have pulled out. Something about a class. Here we go, that class again, the presence in the community. And we look at the weaknesses. Then we're talking about officers and conducting classes, and we're losing members, and we feel to retain many of our previous members. And so we want them to share knowledge. And so now we know what our mission, vision, values are. How do we use these things that people said to move them forward? And there's the threats. Same kind of thing. I was pulling things out. One of these virtual meetings. Man, when we get this COVID thing under under wraps. We are having face-to-face meetings and we are going to do all these things. I heard that. I heard them saying those things over and over. And so this is when we came to this point. We decided that we were going to have design teams. And I don't know what all other states do, but in Ohio, we developed design teams within at least Ohio 4-H. I think some of the other program areas have similar kinds of concepts, or they at least have team concept. And so the master gardeners like that. They know that we have this team kind of concept and extension. Said, why we like that. They didn't want to be a committee because committees don't get anything done in their mind. That's what they were thinking. So if we had these design teams, then we could have one of communication. And some of the things that we want to be able to do in our organization fit right there. We had a communications team. They could maybe think about the newsletter. Maybe it won't be one person. Maybe it'll be a team of people. You know, we ought to use social media, and all these things kept coming up. And so we decided we're going to have these design teams. And again, we go back to the things we have used, have learned about our organization, what people have said, and we put them in these design teams. And these are the strategies now through these design teams that we're going to come up with this plan that's going to move our organization forward. So we not only had a communications team, then we had a recruitment and outreach design team. What do you think recruitment and outreach is going to do? They're going to have a master gardener class. I'm just sure that that's going to show up there somehow to recruit new members. And so all those things that people have been saying, should we or shouldn't we? Now this team of people, they're going to talk about it. So we can have better education inner meetings. Remember, we've heard that before. And then, you know, better outreach into the community. Okay, here's our other teams. Member maintenance design team. There's some things that, you know, we're going to look at here because our resource, our greatest resource is our people. And so here they're talking about an action strategy might be to have a calendar of great programs at each meeting because people were concerned they weren't getting enough education. And so now they're solving their own problem because now they're putting these design teams together and these people will discuss these things. Okay? And we had a community collaborations team and we had an effective meetings design team that was going to take a look at the purpose of the organization. And you can see the things that are, you know, listed there. How extension staff is going to help, how we're going to build leadership within the team. We're going to have better meetings. And look here, the last one, we're going to work with the member maintenance design team to create exciting and interesting meeting calendar. So now they're finding ways to work together. Well, you know, I told you why design teams, because it is positive, it's progressive, it's different, and it showed a level of newness and change that they could buy into. And replicated extensions structure. And master gardeners were feeling that they were a part of the change process. So now we're moving into the action strategies and what needs to be done, who's going to do it, when's it going to get done, and how is it going to get done? Because now these people have thought through all these things and they were hungry to move to the next step. So we're actually going to list some things now. And I won't go read through all of these, but you can see some of the kinds of things that they're now saying, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to take this idea, make a plan, and we're going to put it into action. And, you know, making former members feel welcome again. It's like, well, what a novel thought that is. But really, they thought of it. They're buying into it. They have ownership of this. And so, you know, they're going to figure out why past members are leaving, why we can't retain our membership, and answer those questions to build the strength of this organization. Here comes the newsletters and the officers and those kinds of things. These all fit in, and I'm going to move this along here. So here's our strategies. Now we have these, we've identified them. They match our mission and vision, they match our values, and how and who's going to do it. So, you know, it's great to have a plan, but until you can put a name on it or names on it and get people to say, I'll do that. Now, back in October, the previous year, I couldn't have gotten a person to volunteer to have a team to help with community projects. That's, oh no, I'm too busy, I can't. But now they're saying, you know, this is a part of our organization. this is what's going to make us strong. I want to do that. I want to help. And we had lots and lots of people sign up for these things because now they feel like their organization is moving and they're working together, and they're not going to let the discussions about what wasn't working before hinder them from being positive in the future. So these are just those same things I had there so that you can see now it's who's going to do it and how it's going to be done. So now what does this mean for our master gardeners? Well, is it going to work? And what happens after some time? Is it going to continue? Should we repeat it? Should we redesign it? And so those are some of the questions that we need to continue to ask. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning when I said, why do we need to plan? Well, we know that without a plan, the only way we're going to get where we're going is going to be by accident. So we want to do better than that. We want to define where our organization is going and where it's supposed to go. And I can tell you that these people know now where their organization is going to go because they made it happen. I didn't come in and just tell them, okay, now today we're going to do this and you're all going to sign up and do these things. They made the decision that this is where their organization is going to go in the future. So ongoing, absolutely. We have to touch base with. These design teams continue to meet outside of the regular Master Gardener meetings because they're addressing some of those issues and challenges and goals that they had. It's future oriented, it's value based, and it's action. And so evaluation is, how's it going? If I have a team that's our design team that's not meeting and I haven't heard, when they report at their monthly meeting, then that's a signal to me as the educator that maybe I need to step in there and support them. Maybe they need to redesign. Maybe they've accomplished what they have set out to accomplish. Or maybe we need to repeat the process. So this is something that should be going on and on as long as the organization is growing and thriving, and help them have their outreach into the community. I just want to share, I got about 5 minutes here, my challenges with this. I want to be real honest with you. It is time intensive, but it's good time intensive. It's learning about the organization, seeing the gifts and the talents and the interests and the excitement, the passion that my members in this organization have. And remember, I'm not somebody who works with them day in, day out. So I had to learn those things. And it was really a great opportunity for me, even though it was time intensive. The reluctance at the beginning to buy in, I don't want to say anything. And then to the point where I had to tell them to shh, because we got to stay on target, people. I didn't tell them they couldn't stop talking and thinking and developing, our plan. But sometimes they come in with their own personal agendas. Somebody wanted to do something for the downtown area, and he just had that on his mind. He wanted to do that. But maybe we will do that, but it fits under a discussion and action strategy and action plan. Challenges, making them feel important again. This is their program. And in order for them to continue, I really needed to find a way to make them feel like this was their thing. The virtual versus face-to-face challenge. Now, when I've done this for other organizations, both here locally in my county, in my area, as well as some state organizations that asked me to come in and do strategic planning, it worked best to do that SWAT profile, like in an afternoon. And then I would have the evening to put that together. And then by the next morning, I had that all printed out, ready to go for them to review. And then we could work on those other steps. That was best. And so it's about kind of a full 24-hour kind of thing, or a day and a half kind of time that works best, because then they can see their results faster. They can see kind of how I've shown you. We can put that together. It was a little more challenging doing it virtually, but it can be done. And sometimes that's our new way, that we're going to have to do things virtually. The work done to prepare this for an educator, that was great. The educator came in June, but he only lasted a couple months and he left us. And so some of that fire and enthusiasm was lost. It was kind of disappointing, but it did give me an opportunity to pick up with them and provide the support that they need. My wins, and this is the bottom line. This is the positive side. It really enhanced my relationship with those master gardeners with this particular group. Now they're taking ownership of their group, and I'm just supporting and helping them guide. It's really back to being their program, and that is very exciting. It's a good feeling that I got involved with them. sorry about that. I was cutting and pasting. I got a typo there. But it's beginning to end through the process. And it's really not the end, it's through the completion of the process. We had a good needs assessment. They all had a chance to speak, and I felt good about that because I felt like every person was a part of this process. Now that program is advancing, they're doing pretty well on their own. They don't need as much support from me. They have a new class in the planning stages of becoming this fall. Greater outreach in the community, they feel good about that, and they're taking more responsibility. They're teaching more. They've rekindled their identity, and it's back to being a strong extension program that will be continuing. And so I consider those great strengths. Sometimes you have to put a little bit more effort into a group to help them along. And then once they regain their sails per se, then they can sail on. They don't need me to be there. And that's that to keep moving on. My resources there. And then I want to thank you for being a part of this webinar today. We're right at 45 minutes. And so if there are questions, Travis, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. Well, thank you, Judy. So I did put a note if you have questions and you don't want to drop those in the chat. I do have one question in the chat currently. So are there any big changes to these strategies if the organization is small? For example, if you only have 6 to 10 people?
You know, and to be real honest, you know, the size of the group really isn't as important as the fact that they're all participating. I think you can make it work for a smaller group. The little bit of the challenge is that they know each other better. You know, there's only so many people that are maybe leaders in that group. And so you've got to lay those ground rules out pretty clear at the beginning to make sure everybody understands that we're not taking these things personally. These are for the betterment of the organization. And so I think it could work for a smaller group. And actually, it probably would be a lot faster because you wouldn't have near as many things to tabulate and so forth. But I think the process can work for really any size group, from a small, you know, half a dozen, 10 people to a large group that might have, you know, 50 people. I think it can work. You know, you just need to focus on those ground rules and make sure everybody understands that we're not attacking the people. We're working on improving and advancing our organization.
Okay, any other questions for Judy? Okay, well, thank you, Judy, for your presentation. So I'm gonna drop just a web link in the chat box. So this is where the webinar, once the recording is uploaded, will appear. There are the library is there. So from the last 2 years of webinars are there on the ESP national page as well. And just a note, if you haven't signed up already, you will be receiving here in another week and a half. A reminder, our next webinar is May 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and the topic is seeing yourself in the future, middle school readiness. So that will be on May 25th. So you'll see a reminder come from ESP if you haven't already signed up for that one. So I see one more question from Lisa. So do you recommend a facilitator, note taker, or other individuals outside of the group to help with the process similar to a focus group?
If you have that person available, that would be awesome. Because they can hear and see many of the things that maybe, you know, you may not be able to do as a one person. You know, to me, I was doing this virtually. So sometimes when they would have an idea, they would type it into the chat room. And so I had a record of those. I mean, I didn't have to take sole notes by myself. So it is, you know, obviously if you have help and they can help you combine your notes and things. I've never had a helper when I've done this. But one of the things that I did when I did it with a group outside of Extension, and I had the evening to get things together, I had these threats and opportunities and weaknesses up on a big board so they could see them. And so they were able to pool them and see where things were. And so, I mean, that's what you have to do if you don't have somebody to help you. You're going to have to find a way to be visual so people can see and they can, learn from each other right there. But a note taker would be great if you had a person to do that. I've just not had that luxury in my experience, but I think it would be helpful because you don't want to miss anybody's comments. You don't want to miss anybody's feedback and so forth. I try to, when I do it by myself, I try to make it very visual so they can see me. I could be typing in if I was doing a virtual program like I do with my master gardeners. When somebody said, I would type that in. So I kind of was my own note taker there. So that was helpful.
So one last question, Judy. We've had a couple requests if you would be willing to share your slides so that as they go through the process, they could use that. So
absolutely. And anybody would like to talk to me directly, I'd be happy to share that as well. I'll fix that typo. I apologize. I checked this over, lots of times, but I missed that one in my last review. So I'll be happy to share that. Actually, Travis, you have it.
Okay. Yep.
Probably before the typo, because I gave it to you last night. Okay. So anyway, but, happy to share and happy to work with anybody. Sometimes a good investment reaps a good reward, and so this would be one of those.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your week. Again, thanks, Judy, for being our first up in 2022.
There's my contact information if you would need to get in touch with me. Be happy to work with anyone. Thanks for the opportunity.